The next step for us is to construct, very similar to the way we did our space frame where we were constructing the back legs to this, right? Remember, we're emulating that sun responsive facade that actually collapses. So rather than doing triangulation, we're doing a pyramid setup. So what we need to do is grab the four corners of this surface, and then we need to take list item and get the front surface and grab the centroid and connect those with lines so that we get our pyramid. And that's going to be the beginning of the way we're going to construct this. So to get the centroid, that part's really simple. So just do a copy and paste on the list item, slide it down a little bit, and change your index to 5. Or if you're already on 5, then change it to 0. And that'll give you your front and back surface like that.
Should we increase the space between them?
If you want to, yeah, I would. I would give it some good depth. Like proportionally, I'd say if your panel is, yay wide, you should probably have at least half the width or height of your panel in between them. Something like that, just for visibility's sake. Okay. Now, the centroid is really simple for us. Now that we have our list item, we just need to do an area and plug that into the list item, and that gives us our centroid. And then you can move it kind of all the way over here closer to scale, because we're going to do some things to scale and then use the area very shortly after that. So for simplicity's sake and for visibility's sake, take your two list items and turn them off. You don't need the original surfaces anymore. Sorry, that's up there. These. Turn these off. All right. So now we're going to go back up to where our scale was, and we're going to work on the scaled geometry. By deconstructing it into component parts, but in a very different way than you're used to so far. So in order to get my four corners, that part is really simple. Obviously, it's just another deconstruct BREP. So deconstruct BREP on the modified geometry, and now you have all of the vertices. You can turn the original geometry off. We can, at this point, create a line, or we can create our quad lines, our quad legs like we did with the space frame exercise by dropping in a line under curve primitive line. And you can imagine all you have to do is connect the vertices from your deconstructed BREP to the centroid of your offset surface, or the alternate surface, I should say. All right, and it should look something like this. Every single one of these should begin to be constructed into a pyramid.
What's the area node connected to?
No, nothing. Area? Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, I don't have area connected to anything. You don't need area. Area is a numerical value. You want the centroid.
Oh, okay.
So the centroid is plugged into the line.
But what is that? What is that geometry for?
Where?
Within that one.
This?
What is that plugged into?
This is the geometry input, and it's plugged into.
Item.
your original
Oh, you just repeated that, okay.
front face surface, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, guys, the next thing we need to do here is do a couple of steps where we're constructing a line and finding the midpoint of that line. So, we're going to use the edges off of this deconstruct VREP and the faces. So this is kind of an all-encompassing, very important deconstruct VREP. It looks like this. When you go to, and let me find where it is here. It's under Analysis, Evaluate Curve is what I'm looking for. There it is. So under Curve, Analysis, Evaluate Curve, drop that in, and let's take a look at it. It's going to ask you for a curve, obviously, and then it will ask you for a parameter on that curve. And the important thing to understand about that is when you reparametrize something, remember when we did our domain construction of a surface, you're setting a percentage of that surface via a numerical value, right? So like 0.5 was a surface, or 0.5 would mean that your domain for either the left or right side or the top or bottom side would be halfway across the surface. So we can reparametrize the evaluate curve, right, the curve input, and then we can tell it using params and input, and then a panel, just give it a 2, no, I'm sorry, a 0.5. And then when I plug my edges in, you'll see that it actually finds all of the midpoints of those surface, or of those edges. And just a heads up, this panel is something that when I was doing some research on this one, I actually found a nifty little workaround. Rather than using the param input for integer and having to modify all the values for it, you can just do a panel and it'll just show you the number because the number is the number and it displays it. So that works too. It's better than my method. Evaluate curve is under curve analysis. Okay, we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. This one isn't too much longer. So then after that, after you have that curve, what we need to do is create a line from the centroid of these panels to the points that we just created using evaluate curve. Because look at the output. We have the points, we have the tangent vector, and we have the angle. So the points can actually just be connected via a line all the way back to the centroid of the surface itself. So not this surface, or not this centroid, it's actually all the way back here, this original surface analysis one. So I'll pull that down kind of like this. Looks a little funky, but you get the idea. And we're going to drop in another line, and we're going to draw a line from the points of evaluate surface to the original centroid, and it looks like that. So you should have a cross through the center, and you should have your pyramid construction on top of it. So what I'm going to do is stop here and make sure that you guys are caught up to that point before I move on.